The flagship's royal chamber was unlike anything Deho had ever seen. Crystalline walls that seemed to shift colors with the light, furniture that appeared to grow from the floor itself, and a ceiling that displayed what looked like actual stars rather than a projection. He stood awkwardly near the entrance while Empress Tharava settled her daughters onto an elaborate sleeping platform. They had insisted he come. When he tried to leave, both princesses had become so distressed that the Empress herself asked him to accompany them to the ship. Not ordered. Asked. That alone had shocked every Valkyran present. Now the children were finally calming down, lying on either side of their mother. But both had their faces turned toward where Deho stood. Watching him, making sure he didn't disappear. I am told, Tharava said quietly, that I owe you an apology, and my thanks. And possibly my empire if we had accidentally killed you in our rescue attempt. You didn't know, Deho said. You were scared for your children. I understand that. Do you have children, Engineer Deho? No, Your Majesty. But I have a younger sister I helped raise. When our parents worked long hours, I took care of her. I know what it's like to be responsible for someone small and vulnerable. Tharava looked at him for a long moment. Cross showed me the security footage. My daughters followed a maintenance crew into a service corridor. They were playing at adventure, at exploration. Her voice grew pained. They ran away because I kept them in a cage of safety. After their father died, I became so afraid of losing them that I suffocated them with protection. They're just kids, Deho said gently. Kids need to feel free sometimes, even if it scares their parents. Valkyran children are precious, Tharava explained. We have very few young. Each child is treasured beyond measure, royalty even more so. The thought of my daughters in danger, alone and afraid. She stroked Lys's hair. I have never been so terrified. Lys stirred and said something. Her mother responded softly. Then the princess looked at Deho and spoke directly to him, her tone very serious. She wants to explain, Tharava translated. She says I should understand why they went to you. I'd like to understand that too, Deho admitted. Through her mother's translation, Lys told her story. How the guards were always watching. How she couldn't play freely. How she missed her father, who used to hold her and let her fall asleep to his heartbeat. How she wanted an adventure, just one small adventure. Nira had followed her sister as she always did. They found their way to the docking bay and followed workers, thinking it would lead to something interesting. But they got lost in the human station. Everything was strange and scary. The smells were wrong. The sounds were too loud. They were cold and hungry and frightened. Then they found an open door. Inside was a sleeping creature. They crept closer and Lys heard it. The heartbeat. The exact rhythm her father's heart had made. That specific pattern that had soothed her from birth. It is extraordinarily rare, Tharava explained. 1 in perhaps 1,000,000 of our people have this heart pattern. My mate was one, and somehow this human engineer has the same rhythm. Different physiology, different species, but the same timing. The same cadence, so they thought I was... Deho trailed off. No, Tharava said. They knew you were not their father, but their brains, their instincts recognized safety in that sound. They were too young to understand why, but they felt it. So they went to you. And I just slept through it, Deho said, shaking his head. I was so tired I didn't even know they were there until morning. Perhaps that was best, Tharava mused. If you had woken and startled them, they might have run again. Instead, they found comfort and fell asleep. For the first time since they ran away, they felt safe. Nira yawned and said something to her mother. Tharava smiled sadly. She says you are very warm. Warmer than our people. She liked being warm. Human body temperature runs higher than Valkyran. Hana's voice came from the doorway. The medic had been cleared to visit after being treated for her injuries. Around 37 degrees Celsius on average. It probably felt nice to them after being in the cold corridors. You are the medical human, Tharava acknowledged. I am told you helped keep my daughter safe as well. You have my gratitude. I just did my job, Hana said. Though I admit this wasn't covered in medical school. Treating alien princesses isn't in the standard curriculum. Despite the tension, Tharava laughed. It was a beautiful sound, like chimes in wind. Her daughters perked up at hearing their mother laugh, and they smiled too. I find humans strange, Tharava admitted. Your species is so young. You have barely left your homeworld, and yet you spread through space with such confidence. The Valkyrin have been traveling the stars for thousands of your years, and still you amaze us with your adaptability. We do our best, Deho said modestly. You did more than that, Therava corrected. You could have been frightened of my daughters. They are alien to you. Strange. You could have called for authorities immediately and protected yourself from suspicion, but instead you read the situation. You saw scared children who needed comfort and you provided it. Even when you learned who they were, you did not panic. You simply tried to do what was right. Anyone would have done the same. No, Therava said firmly. They would not. I have dealt with many species, many cultures. Most would have seen opportunity or threat. Few would have seen simply children in need. Your instinct was to protect, to comfort. That is not universal, Engineer Deho. That is exceptional. Deho didn't know what to say to that. He looked at the two small princesses who were now fighting sleep, determined to keep watching him. Jiwoo entered the chamber, moving carefully in the presence of the Empress. Your Majesty, I have the complete security records you requested. Every moment from when the princesses entered our station until they were found. I've also prepared statements from all personnel who had any contact, however brief. Thank you, Administrator, Therava said. She gestured to a guard who took the datapad from Jiwoo. I will review everything. I must understand exactly what happened to ensure it never happens again. If I may speak freely, Jiwoo said carefully. You may. Your daughters are very smart and very determined. The security footage shows they evaded multiple checkpoints through clever timing and small size. If they want to escape again, they probably will find a way. Maybe the solution isn't better locks. Maybe it's giving them appropriate freedom within safety. Therava was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at her daughters. You are correct. I have been trying to cage the wind. It is not possible, and I was foolish to try. Liz said something to her mother, her tone questioning. Therava responded, and Liz's face lit up. She clapped her small hands together and bounced excitedly, waking Nira, who looked confused but excited by her sister's energy. What did you tell them? Deho asked. I promised them we would make changes. Fewer guards, more freedom. And most importantly, I will spend more time with them myself rather than delegating their care to others. I have been Empress for so long that I forgot how to be simply mother. Nira reached toward Deho, making grabbing motions. He instinctively moved closer and she patted his hand, then pulled it to her face and held it there like a comfort object. They are going to miss you, Therava observed. This complicates things. I'm just an engineer, Deho said. They'll forget about me in a few days. I think you underestimate your impact, Hana said with a slight smile. General Cross entered the chamber and bowed to the Empress. The diplomatic teams are prepared. The alliance proposals are ready for your review. The humans have been very cooperative. Alliance? Deho asked, confused. Therava stood, carefully extracting herself from her daughters, who protested but allowed it when she promised to return quickly. She faced Deho fully. My daughters were lost on a human station. They were found safe, unharmed and cared for by humans who owed us nothing but gave everything anyway. You fed them, sheltered them, protected them, and returned them to me despite the personal danger. This is not insignificant. She gestured to the view screen, which showed Haven's rest station floating in space, surrounded by both human and Valkyrin ships. Your colony struggles, does it not? Limited resources, old equipment. You work hard for little reward. This will change. Haven's Rest will become a protected station under the Valkyrin Empire. We will provide resources, technology, defense. In return, you will serve as a bridge between our peoples. Your Majesty, that's incredibly generous, but it is not generosity. It is debt payment. My daughters' lives are worth more than any resource or technology. You gave them back to me. I repay what I owe. Deho looked at Jiwoo, who was trying not to smile too widely. The station will accept this arrangement, won't we, Administrator? We would be honored, Jiwoo said diplomatically. Therava returned to her daughters, who immediately crawled into her arms. But they kept looking at Deho, and Nira still held his hand. There is one more thing, Therava said. You have formed a bond with my daughters that cannot be ignored. I would request that you remain available to them. Visit occasionally. Allow them to maintain contact. It will ease their transition. I'm not sure how often I can travel to... You misunderstand. I am moving the Royal Palace ship to this sector. We will remain nearby for the foreseeable future. The message came through on Jiwoo's emergency communicator, just as Empress Tharava's flagship completed docking. The administrator's face went pale as she read the intercepted transmission. General Cross had not delivered her carefully worded explanation. Instead, someone in his command staff had interpreted Daeho's location and situation as a hostage scenario. No, 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 Jiwoo muttered, running toward the communications center. This is all wrong. On the command deck of the flagship, Tharava reviewed the tactical report with cold fury. A human engineer, holding her daughters, refusing to release them. Guards posted outside his door. Her children had been found, but they were still in danger. Prepare assault teams, she ordered. Seal that section. I want my daughters extracted immediately. Your Majesty, one of her advisors ventured carefully. General Cross suggested a more measured approach. My daughters have been missing for 2 days. Tharava's voice was ice. Every moment they remain with this human is unacceptable. We move now. The station's alarms began blaring. Emergency bulkheads started closing throughout the residential section. Daeho looked up from the sleeping princesses in confusion. What's happening? He asked Hana. She checked her communicator and her expression went from worried to horrified. They think you're holding them hostage. They're coming for you. Combat teams? What? No. Daeho stood up carefully, cradling both children. We need to explain. We need to tell them. The door to his quarters exploded inward. Not opened. Exploded. The blast threw Hana backward into the wall. Daeho turned his body to shield the children from the debris, taking several impacts on his back and shoulders. The princesses screamed. Not the distress sound from before, but pure terror. Armored Valkyran soldiers poured through the opening, weapons raised. They shouted commands in their language, harsh and demanding. Daeho raised one hand while keeping the other arm wrapped around the children. Don't shoot. Please, they're okay. I'm not hurting them. But the soldiers saw only a human holding their princesses and the children were screaming. One soldier raised a weapon. Daeho closed his eyes, certain this was the end. Then Nira screamed differently. This wasn't fear. This was something else. The sound hit a pitch that made Daeho's teeth hurt. Every electronic device in the room sparked and died. The soldiers' armor systems flickered offline. The lights went dark. Even the emergency systems failed. In the sudden silence, Nira's scream faded to sobbing. She buried her face against Daeho's chest, shaking violently. Liz was crying too, saying something over and over in her language that sounded like pleading. Back away, Daeho said firmly to the soldiers. You're scaring them. Get back. One soldier, whose translator still worked through a backup system, relayed this to his team. They hesitated, then slowly lowered their weapons. But they didn't leave. Hana groaned from where she'd fallen. Everyone stop. Medical emergency. I need help here. 2 soldiers moved to assist her, their training overriding their combat instincts. One checked her injuries while the other spoke into a still-functioning communicator. Medical team to Residential Sector 7. Human injured. Princesses located and appear unharmed but distressed. Are you okay? Daeho asked Hana, unable to go to her with both children clinging to him. Bruised. Maybe a concussion. I'll live. She looked at the soldiers. Your approach terrified them. Look at what you've done. More Valkyran arrived, including General Cross, who took one look at the destroyed door and the crying children, and closed his eyes in frustration. I ordered a careful approach. Who authorized explosive entry? Commander Vex, sir, one soldier reported. He believed the situation required immediate action. The situation required thinking, Cross snapped. He looked at Daeho. The princesses? Scared out of their minds but not hurt, Daeho said. He was speaking softly, trying to calm the children with his tone even as he spoke to the general. Unlike my friend who got thrown into a wall because your people decided to blow up my door. My apologies, Cross said stiffly. But understand, we believed them to be in danger. They were safer 5 minutes ago than they are now, Daeho shot back. He was angry now, the adrenaline and fear converting to frustrated rage. I was keeping them calm, fed, protected, and you came in like a military strike team and traumatized them more. Liz raised her head and looked at General Cross. She said something, her voice choked with tears but firm. The general's expression shifted. She says, he paused, seeming reluctant to translate. She says you are scaring her and her sister. She says the human is nice and you are being mean to him. Smart kid, Hana muttered from where the medics were treating her. Before anyone could respond, another presence filled the doorway. Empress Therava had arrived. She was shorter than Cross but radiated absolute authority. Her skin glowed brighter than her daughter's, and her eyes held a mixture of relief and fury that made even the soldiers step back. "My daughters," she breathed. Then her eyes locked onto Deho. "Step away from them now." "I can't," Deho said, trying to keep his voice calm despite his racing heart. "Every time I try to put them down, they panic. I'm not keeping them from you. They're keeping themselves with me." Therava's eyes narrowed. "You dare tell me my own daughters prefer a human stranger to their mother?" "I'm not telling you anything," Deho said tiredly. "I'm just explaining what's happening. Look, I don't want to be in the middle of a galactic incident. I just want them safe and back with you. But they bonded to me somehow. My heartbeat or something. Your general can explain the biology better than I can." Cross stepped forward and quickly briefed the Empress in their language. Deho watched her face go through several emotions as she listened. When Cross finished, she looked at Deho with an expression he couldn't read. "Show me," she commanded. "Show you what?" "Prove they have bonded to you. Try to set them down." Deho looked down at the two princesses. They had stopped crying but were watching their mother with uncertain expressions. He carefully tried to lower Nira onto the floor. Immediately she gripped his shirt and started that distressed sound again. He quickly lifted her back up and she quieted. Therava's expression cracked slightly. Pain showed through the anger. "They ran away from me," she said quietly. "They were suffocating under my protection, so they ran. And they found comfort with a stranger because I failed them." "That's not," Deho started. But she cut him off. "Do not presume to understand what I feel. Human." She stepped closer, her hands reaching toward her daughters. "Liz, Nira, come to mother." Liz looked torn. She reached one hand toward her mother, but she didn't let go of Deho. Nira refused to even look, pressing her face harder against his chest. "Please," Therava said, and her voice broke slightly. "Please, my daughters. I have been so frightened. Come back to me." Deho made a decision. He slowly sat down on the floor, making himself smaller and less threatening. He spoke to the children even though they couldn't understand his words. "Your mom loves you. She was scared when you were gone. I bet she's been looking everywhere for you. And I bet she missed you so much." He looked at Therava. "Come down here. Sit with us. You give orders to an empress?" One of the advisors gasped. "I make suggestions to a worried mother," Deho corrected. "The empress thing is secondary right now." Therava surprised everyone by doing exactly that. She lowered herself to the floor, sitting cross-legged in a way that seemed almost childlike. Up close, Deho could see the exhaustion in her face, the tear tracks that her species apparently did produce, though they glowed faintly instead of showing as wetness. Liz watched her mother carefully. She said something soft and questioning. Therava responded in their language, her tone gentle and pleading. Slowly, Liz reached out with one hand and touched her mother's face. Therava closed her eyes, a tear sliding down her cheek. She took her daughter's small hand and held it like it was the most precious thing in all creation. Because Deho realized to her it was. "Tell them they're safe," Deho said softly. "Tell them you're not angry. Tell them you just want them home." Cross translated quietly. Therava spoke to her daughters in a steady stream of words. Whatever she said, it was working. Liz leaned forward, reaching for her mother, but she kept one hand gripping Deho's shirt. She wanted both of them. Nira finally lifted her head and looked at her mother. She said something that made Therava laugh through her tears. She says she is hungry and tired and wants her bed. She says the human is nice, but his bed is uncomfortable. Fair assessment, Deho agreed. Standard station bunks are pretty terrible. Gradually, carefully, the children were transferred to their mother's arms. But it wasn't easy. They kept looking back at Deho, reaching for him. Only when he moved closer, staying within their sight and touch, did they fully settle against Therava. The Empress held her daughters and wept openly now, all pretense of royal dignity abandoned. She was just a mother reunited with her lost children. The guards looked away, giving her privacy in this moment. General Cross stood and gestured for the others to leave. "Give Her Majesty time," he said quietly. But as Deho tried to stand and leave, Nira grabbed his hand and refused to let go. The wait felt like hours, though only 20 minutes had passed. Deho sat very still, afraid to move and upset the children. The larger princess, Liz, had started exploring his face with her small hands. fascinated by his features. She touched his nose, his eyebrows, his hair. Each time she discovered something new, she would look at her sister and babble something excitedly. Hannah kept checking her scanner and watching the door nervously. Heart rate elevated, she muttered. Both yours and mine. Can't imagine why, Daeho said dryly. A sharp knock made them both jump. The door slid open before either could respond. Jiwoo entered first, followed by a massive Valkyrian warrior. General Cross had to duck to fit through the human-sized doorway. He was nearly 7 feet tall, with 4 powerful arms and armor that seemed to absorb light. His face was angular and severe, his eyes scanning the room with military precision. Those eyes locked onto the children, and his entire posture changed. The rigid military bearing softened. He took 1 step forward, then stopped, clearly forcing himself to move slowly. "Princesses?" he said in a deep voice that somehow came out gentle. He spoke in the Valkyrian language, a series of melodic sounds that Daeho couldn't begin to understand. Liz looked up at the general. She recognized him. She said something back, but her tone was uncertain. When Cross took another step forward, both children pressed harder against Daeho. Nira woke up and immediately started that high-pitched distress sound. Cross froze. His expression was a mixture of relief and confusion. He looked at Daeho. Really, looked at him for the first time, and his eyes narrowed. "You are holding the crown princesses of the Valkyrian Empire," Cross said in heavily accented but understandable human common language. "Explain how this happened." Daeho swallowed hard. "I came home from my shift. I was exhausted. I fell asleep. When I woke up, they were on my chest. I don't know how they got here. I don't know why they chose my room. I swear I didn't take them." "The security footage confirms his story," Jiwoo added quickly. "I pulled the records. The children wandered into a maintenance corridor after following one of our repair crews. They somehow ended up in this residential sector. Nobody took them. They walked here on their own." Cross processed this information. He spoke again in Valkyrian, his tone questioning. Liz responded, her small voice earnest. She pointed at Daeho's chest and said something that made Cross's expression shift to surprise. "What did she say?" Daeho asked. Cross was quiet for a moment, clearly struggling with something. "She says you sound like her father. Your heartbeat. The rhythm. Their father, the late emperor, his heart had an unusual pattern due to his genetics. Very few Valkyrian have this exact rhythm. Apparently humans do. Or at least you do." "That's impossible," Daeho said. "We're completely different species." "Biology is strange," Hana offered. "Sometimes completely unrelated species develop similar traits, convergent evolution, or just cosmic coincidence." Cross tried again to approach, moving with careful slowness. He spoke softly in Valkyrian, clearly trying to coax the children to him. Liz looked tempted. She reached one hand toward the general, but she didn't let go of Daeho. Nira refused to even look at Cross, burying her face against Daeho's shirt. "They have bonded to him," Hana explained. "It's a stress response. They were lost and terrified, and his specific biological markers triggered a sense of safety. Forcing separation now could traumatize them." "The Empress will be here within the hour," Cross said grimly. "She will want her daughters. She will not be patient." "Then we need to prepare her," Jiwoo said. "We need to explain this situation carefully. If she comes in demanding and aggressive, the children will panic. Everyone loses." Cross looked torn between his duty and his genuine concern for the children. Finally he nodded. "I will speak with Her Majesty. But human," he looked at Daeho intensely, "you will not leave this room. Guards will be posted outside. If you try to run, I'm not going anywhere," Daeho said tiredly. "Where would I go? And I'm not about to traumatize 2 scared kids by dragging them through your warship." Something in Daeho's tone seemed to satisfy Cross. The general nodded, once and left, speaking rapidly into his communication device. Jiwoo lingered a moment longer. "For what it's worth," she said, "you did the right thing. You kept them safe. That counts for something." "Tell that to their mother when she arrives," Daeho muttered. After Jiwoo left, Hana stayed. She pulled up a chair and sat nearby, ready to help if needed. "How are you holding up?" "I'm terrified," Daeho admitted. "I'm holding the children of the most powerful being in the galaxy, and they won't let me put them down." As if on cue, Nira started squirming. She said something that sounded distressed. Liz looked worried and spoke to Hana, gesturing at her sister. "I think she needs the bathroom," Hana said. "Oh, great," Daeho sighed. "How do I?" "Let me try," Hana said. She moved slowly, speaking in a gentle tone even though the children couldn't understand the words. She held out her hands to Nira. The little princess looked at Daeho, who nodded encouragingly. "It's okay," he said softly. "She's going to help you." Something in his tone must have worked. Nira reluctantly let Hana pick her up. The medic carried her quickly to the small bathroom. Lisa stayed with Daeho but watched the door anxiously until her sister returned. After Nira was back, both children seemed calmer. They were still pressed against Daeho, but they weren't gripping him quite as desperately. He carefully reached for his jacket pocket and pulled out an old harmonica his grandfather had given him years ago. "My grandpa taught me to play this when I was little," he said, mostly to distract himself from the stress. Said music was good for the soul. He played a simple melody, nothing complicated. Just a soft, gentle tune his grandfather used to play to help him sleep. The effect on the children was immediate. Both princesses stopped squirming and stared at the harmonica with wide eyes. Nira reached for it, fascinated. Daeho let her touch it, then played another note. She laughed. It was the first happy sound either child had made since he woke up. Lise smiled too, a brilliant expression that made her luminescent skin glow brighter. He played more, simple songs and lullabies. The children relaxed completely, their earlier fear melting away. Nira started humming along, even though she didn't know the melody. Lise swayed gently to the rhythm. "That's amazing," Hana whispered. "They're completely calm now." "Music is universal, I guess," Daeho said. Outside he could hear more ships docking, more boots in the corridors. The Empress had arrived. Soon, everything would change. But for now, in this small room, a tired engineer played simple songs for two alien princesses, and for a brief moment, everything felt peaceful. Lys looked up at Daeho and said something in her language. She patted his chest where his heart beat steadily. Then she laid her head down and closed her eyes, content and safe. "You're really good at this," Hana observed. "At what?" "Taking care of scared kids. You should have some of your own someday." Daeho laughed weakly. "Right now, I'd settle for surviving the next hour when their mother shows up." The door chimed. A Valkyrian voice spoke from outside, formal and respectful but firm. "The Empress approaches. Prepare the princesses for presentation." Daeho looked at the two sleeping children on his chest, listened to their soft breathing, and felt a strange protective instinct rise in him. These weren't his children, they weren't even his species, but somehow in this moment they were his responsibility. "Let her come," he said quietly. "But she'll have to do this the right way. These kids have been through enough." Daeho woke slowly, feeling an unusual weight on his chest. His eyes opened to see two small faces staring down at him. He froze. The faces were definitely not human. The skin was pale and seemed to glow faintly with a soft blue light. Large eyes, bigger than human eyes, watched him without blinking. Delicate features that looked almost like crystal formations ran along their cheekbones. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Daeho's brain finally caught up with what he was seeing. "What the?" He started to sit up, but the smaller child made a frightened sound and gripped his shirt. The larger one wrapped her arms protectively around her companion. Both looked terrified. Daeho stopped moving. His mind raced. Alien children. On his chest. In his quarters. How? When? Why? He took a slow breath and tried to think clearly. They were scared. They were small. And they were definitely not supposed to be here. "It's okay," he said softly, keeping his voice gentle. "I'm not going to hurt you." They didn't understand his words, but his tone seemed to help. The smaller one stopped making that frightened sound. Daeho slowly moved to a sitting position, and the children stayed pressed against him, unwilling to let go. He reached for his communicator, but the moment he moved his arm, both children gripped him tighter. The smaller one started making a high-pitched, distressed sound that made Daeho's ears hurt. Okay, he said quickly, putting the communicator down. I won't call anyone yet. The children relaxed slightly. Daeho looked at them more carefully. They wore what looked like expensive clothing, though it was torn and dirty now. There were markings on their foreheads that seemed to shimmer and shift. He didn't know much about aliens, but even he could tell these were not ordinary refugee children. A knock on his door made all three of them jump. Before Daeho could respond, the door slid open and Hana walked in carrying a medical scanner. Hey Daeho, you missed your mandatory health check and I need to... She stopped dead, staring at the scene before her. What in the world? I can explain, Daeho said quickly. Actually, I can't explain. I woke up and they were here. Hana closed the door quickly and locked it. She moved closer, her medical training taking over. Are they hurt? I don't think so. They're just scared. Hana slowly approached, holding out her hands to show she meant no harm. The children watched her but didn't pull away. She carefully scanned them with her medical device, her eyes widening as she read the results. Daeho, she said quietly, these aren't just any alien children. Look at these markings. Look at these genetic markers. These are high-caste Valkyrin. Very high caste. What does that mean? It means they're important. Very important. And, she paused, checking her scanner again. Oh no, what? Turn on the station newsfeed, Hana said urgently. Daeho grabbed his tablet and pulled up the news. The screen showed Jiwoo's face looking stressed and exhausted. Behind her, through her office window, he could see massive alien warships, cooperating fully with the Valkyrin military search. Jiwoo was saying, all residents are asked to remain calm and allow search teams access to their quarters. This is not optional. The Valkyrin Empire is searching for 2 missing royal children, and any interference will be treated as a hostile act. Daeho felt the blood drain from his face. Royal children? I think, Hana said slowly, you're holding the 2 most wanted beings in the galaxy right now. The station shook slightly as more Valkyrin ships docked. Through his small window, Daeho could see armed aliens moving through the corridors. The search had begun. We need to take them to Jiwoo, Hana said. Right now. Daeho tried to stand, but the moment he moved toward the door, both children started making those distressed sounds again. The smaller one's cry rose in pitch until Daeho's ears rang. He quickly sat back down and they quieted. They won't let me move, he said helplessly. Hana tried to gently pull the larger child away, but the little princess gripped Daeho's shirt with surprising strength. She looked up at Hana and said something in her own language. The tone was clear even without translation. No, this is bad, Hana muttered. The search teams are going to reach this sector in hours. Maybe less. If they find you with the children, they'll think I kidnapped them, Daeho finished. Can you blame them? You're a human holding their missing princesses. Daeho looked down at the 2 small faces pressed against his chest. They looked exhausted and scared, but somehow they also looked content. The smaller one had actually fallen back asleep, her glowing skin pulsing gently with each breath. Why me? Daeho wondered aloud. Why did they come to me? Hana ran another scan, this time comparing the children's bio signs with Daeho's. Her expression shifted from confusion to understanding. Your heartbeat, she said, and probably your body temperature, your scent, something about your specific biology. It's mimicking something familiar to them, maybe a parent or caregiver. They feel safe with you specifically. That's impossible. I've never even seen a Valkyrin before today. Biology doesn't care about logic, Hana said. Sometimes these things just happen. Different species, similar enough physiology. Your heartbeat rhythm, it's probably close to their father's. Or their mother's. Something their infant brains recognize as safe. The communicator on Daeho's wall suddenly activated. Jiwoo's voice came through, sounding strained. All residents, this is Administrator Jiwoo. Valkyrin search teams will begin systematic searches of residential quarters in 1 hour. Please ensure your doors are unlocked and be prepared to answer questions. Do not resist. I repeat, do not resist. Daeho and Hana looked at each other. 1 hour. That was all they had. What do I do? Daeho asked. Hana thought fast. Can you access the command channel? The direct line to Jiwoo? I'm just an engineer. I don't have that kind of clearance. I might, Hana said. As medical staff, I have emergency protocols. If we can explain this situation to Jiwoo before the military finds you, maybe we can control how this goes. She pulled out her medical communicator and started entering codes. After a few tense moments, Jiwoo's tired face appeared on the screen. Hana? This better be an actual emergency because, Administrator, I'm in Daeho's quarters right now, Hana interrupted. We found them. We found the missing children. Jiwoo's expression went from irritated to shocked to terrified in the span of 3 seconds. What?
Where? How?
They're here. With Daeho. And there's a problem. They won't leave him. Every time he tries to move toward the door, they panic. I think it's a biological bonding thing. His heartbeat or something is comforting them. Jiwoo closed her eyes and took a deep breath. This is either going to save us all or start a war. Stay there. Don't move. I'm coming to you and I'm bringing General Cross. Maybe if they see the children are safe and unharmed, we can explain this. And if they don't believe us? Daeho asked. Then pray your new little friends can convince their own people you're not a threat, Jiwoo said grimly. Because right now you're the most dangerous person on this station. The screen went dark. Daeho looked down at the sleeping princesses on his chest. The smaller one was snoring softly. The larger one looked up at him with those huge, trusting eyes. She reached up and patted his face gently, saying something in her language that sounded almost like, safe. Yeah. Daeho whispered, You're safe. I just hope I am too. The alarm screamed through every corridor of the royal palace ship. Empress Therava rushed through the golden doors of her daughter's chambers, her heart pounding in a way she had not felt since the death of her mate 3 cycles ago. The room was empty. The sleeping pods where Princess Lys and Princess Nira should have been resting stood open, their silk coverings thrown aside. Search everywhere, she commanded. Her voice carried the weight of absolute authority, but beneath it lay something raw and terrified. Within moments, hundreds of royal guards flooded through the massive vessel. They checked every room, every storage bay, every hidden corner. The 2 young princesses had vanished. The Valkyran Empire was the most powerful force in the known galaxy. Their ships were legendary, their military unmatched, their technology centuries ahead of most other species. Yet none of that mattered now. The Empress's daughters were gone, and she could not protect them. General Cross arrived at her side, his forearms folded in a gesture of respect and concern. We will find them, Your Majesty, he said firmly. No one could have taken them from this ship without leaving traces, but there were no traces. The security systems showed nothing unusual. The guards had seen nothing. It was as if the children had simply disappeared into empty space. The Empress felt her composure cracking. Lys was barely 5 cycles old. Nira was only 3. They were babies, vulnerable and precious beyond measure. Expand the search to all nearby systems, Therava ordered. Every station, every planet, every ship. I want my daughters found. Far away on a small human colony station called Haven's Rest, Daeho wiped the grease from his hands and sighed with exhaustion. The atmospheric processor had taken 6 hours to repair, and his shift had started 14 hours ago. His back ached, his eyes burned, and all he wanted was to collapse on his bunk and sleep for a week. Haven's Rest was not a glamorous place. It was a mining and trade station on the edge of human-controlled space, home to about 3,000 colonists who worked hard and dreamed of saving enough credits to move somewhere better. Daeho had been here for 2 years, sending most of his salary back to his family on Earth. His younger sister wanted to go to university, and someone had to pay for it. He walked through the quiet corridors toward the residential section. Most people were already asleep. The station ran on 3 shifts, and night shift workers like Daeho had learned to move quietly so they wouldn't disturb the day shift sleepers. He passed the mess hall, the recreation room, and finally reached his small quarters. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Daeho didn't bother turning on the main lights. He just dropped his toolkit by the door, kicked off his boots, and fell onto his bunk fully clothed. Sleep came quickly, dragging him down into darkness. He didn't notice the 2 small shapes huddled in the corner of his room. He didn't hear their quiet, frightened breathing. He didn't see them watching him with large, luminescent eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. Princess Lys held her baby sister close. They had been lost for so long. The bright, scary station with all its strange sounds and smells had terrified them. They had followed a maintenance worker through a doorway, thinking it would lead back to their ship, but instead they had gotten more and more lost. When they saw the open door and smelled something different inside, they had hidden there. Now there was a creature sleeping on the flat surface. It was bigger than them, but not as big as the guards back home. It made a soft, rhythmic sound that reminded Liz of something. She couldn't remember what, but it made her feel less afraid. Cold, Nira whispered in their language. She was shivering. The station was temperature-controlled for humans, which was much cooler than the Valkyrin preferred. Liz looked at the sleeping creature. It seemed peaceful. It wasn't moving to hurt them, and it was making that comforting sound, that steady rhythm. Before she could think too much about it, she pulled Nira forward. They climbed up onto the bunk slowly, carefully. The human's chest was warm. The sound was louder now, a strong and steady thumping. Liz suddenly remembered what it reminded her of. Her father's heartbeat. When she was very small, before he died, he would hold her against his chest and she would fall asleep to that exact rhythm. Different species, different worlds, but somehow this human's heartbeat felt the same. Nira curled against the warmth, her shivering slowly stopping. Liz wrapped her arms around her sister and pressed her ear to the human's chest. The steady thump, 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 thump lulled her into the first real sense of safety she'd felt since they ran away. Within minutes, both princesses were asleep. The Valkyrin fleet appeared at the edge of human space like a storm cloud on a clear day. 50 warships, each one capable of destroying a small moon. They moved with purpose, their sensors sweeping every planet and station in the sector. The humans watched with growing alarm as the alien armada demanded access to their facilities. On Haven's Rest, Station Administrator Jiwoo sat in her office reviewing the emergency transmission from the Valkyrin fleet. Her hand shook slightly as she read the message. 2 royal children missing, believed kidnapped. All human stations to be searched immediately. Cooperation mandatory. Resistance would be met with force. This is bad, muttered her assistant. They think we took their kids? Jiwoo rubbed her temples. They're desperate. Desperate people do extreme things. We need to cooperate fully. Send a message to all residents. Full transparency. Open all doors, all systems. We have nothing to hide. 3 massive Valkyrin warships took up position around Haven's Rest. Their weapons were not charged, but the threat was clear. General Cross contacted Jiwoo directly. His face on the screen was stern, his eyes hard. We will search your station, he said. There was no question in his voice. Any resistance will be considered an act of war. We will cooperate, Jiwoo replied calmly, though her heart raced. But I assure you, General, we have no royal children here. We're a mining station. Most of our people are simple workers. Then you have nothing to fear from our search, Cross said coldly. As the transmission ended, Jiwoo looked out her window at the massive alien ships. Somewhere on her station, 3,000 people were going about their lives, completely unaware that sleeping peacefully in one engineer's quarters were the 2 most sought-after children in the galaxy.